Hello again, and welcome back to a new edition of the Wiccan Conservative. I apologize for the breaking in the videos after I come home from the picnic. We really just enjoyed our baskets, and I sent out a personal thank you to one of the people who attended the event, and I have been doing a lot of social media dumpster diving, if you will, trying to find a next topic of conversation. We've been through the Spygate. There's no sense in going back over that information. The other big topic that nobody seems to be talking about is the HEROES Act that is coming down the pike through Congress. I believe it passed the House and is now into the Senate. If you've not heard about that bill, please go read the HEROES Act and see for yourself the insane amount of spending that they want to initiate in the name of coronavirus, despite the fact that we are starting to reopen up the country and, get back to some semblance of normal, whether we have to do that with masks or whether we are doing that without any type of restraint to our normal lives, so to speak. But I woke up this morning and saw the riots in Minneapolis and decided that there were a couple instances going on that I needed to address and get off my chest, even though as a little white girl in the middle of the country, I should not be talking about the events that I'm about to speak on. But as with everything, everybody has an opinion, and if you disagree with mine, that's more than welcome. And if you agree with what I say, that's more than welcome as well. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions and how they think. But with what we're seeing in America today, it has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed, in my opinion, in a way that nobody else is kind of looking at this. A lot of people want to take sides. They don't want to get labels. They're afraid of what people are going to say about them. And, I'm not going to pretend like I'm above any of that fear or that I'm above any reproach, so to speak. But I am going to put my opinion out there. So we're going to start off today with the instance in Central Park. I'm sure everybody has heard about this already. This is, I think, 2 days old, and a lot of information has already come out down the pike for it, but this is where I'm going to start. The Central Park Karen story, the Amy Cooper story. If you haven't heard about this, in a nutshell, 2 adults collide in Central Park over a dog being off leash in a mandatory leash zone. This woman disregarded the sign. She decided that she was going to have her dog off leash. A gentleman walks up upon her and, through his own admission says, hey, you need to have your dog on a leash. She says, due to all the restrictions and things that are going on due to the coronavirus, I can't go let him off where I should be able to let him off, so I'm going to let him off here. And the guy comes up and says, well, then, if you're going to do what you want to do, then I'm going to do what I want to do, and proceeds to try to give the dog treats. We don't know what his intention was, whether he wanted to lure the dog, to steal the dog. I've heard a lot of different assumptions as to what his ulterior motive was for provoking her to get the dog onto the leash. But what I had a huge problem with, and I think what people aren't able to articulate about this situation, is her response to the man telling her to leash her dog. As soon as, he starts saying that, well, I'm going to participate in behaviors that you don't like, and attempts to lure the dog or whatever he did off camera before he started recording. When he starts recording her, she threatens him by telling him, I'm going to call the cops and I'm going to tell them that there is an African American man attacking me. or harassing me. I'm paraphrasing here. I'm not exactly, 100% sure what she said verbatim. I didn't watch the video that many times. But it implied, in my opinion, as a white female who has been in a situation alone and I guess not attacked, but kind of advanced upon by men, it applied to me that she was attempting to use racist narratives to diffuse the situation. Whether it came off that she was going to call the cops, and as a white female being attacked by a black male, the officers were going to respond more quickly, or they were going to respond in a more forcible way, or if she was just saying that to get the man to scatter, to be afraid enough to leave her alone. And then when she got on the phone with the actual police, she didn't even really describe him as an African American male until they were a couple minutes into the conversation. She started off with, there's a man harassing me at the park. Then she escalated it to, there's an African American man harassing me at the park. And then she resorted back to, I'm being attacked in the park. My dog and I are being attacked in the park. So when she got on the phone with the police, they didn't respond exactly the way that she thought that they were going to respond, or what have you. So it kind of felt like her words had to change to initiate a response from the officers. And I don't care what happened prior to get to that point. Or what happened necessarily after, because technically what happened after is they ended up wasting the officer's time. She made a phone call for the police to come, and when the police got there, neither the suspect nor the complainant was on site. So you've now wasted the officer's time, in my opinion, for something that you committed the crime initially. So when I saw this video, my very first reaction is that's exactly how and why little white girls get labeled racist, or get labeled as afraid of minorities, or we're somehow we're all afraid of the big scary black boogeyman. And I lived in Pittsburgh for my entire life. I lived in the suburbs of Pittsburgh City. And, very mixed races in the community. It was a predominantly black community. I went to a predominantly black school. And the only time that I would have ever brought race into a situation is if I was relaying that information to the officer at the time of filing the police report. I wouldn't have said to the man, I'm going to call the cops and say that there's a black man harassing me. That thought would have never crossed my mind, because I don't feel that the police would react a different way based upon the race of a suspect. Knowing that about myself, when I see other cases such as, and we're going to go into another one, the Ahmaud Arbery case. And I know, again, a lot of you people have heard about this case as well. This is the trespasser who was found on camera trespassing multiple times. No, he didn't steal anything, but they, played his death out as a group of white men hunting down a black man for being caught on the white man's property, and turned it into, again, another race narrative. Now, knowing how, again, I act personally in response to these situations, I always try to take race out of the equation. If it was just two men hunting down another man, regardless of his skin color, I asked the basic question, why? Why were these people out looking for this man? And again, this happened a few months ago. It was kind of put to bed. Then the advocates for the family came out and tried to spin a alternate story about him just being a jogger and he was just in the area. And, the people that were hunting him down were racists and they had no reason to. And then I seen the video of the incident. And again, a few questions crossed my mind. If you were just a jogger, why would you go and approach, first off, a vehicle on the side of the road that's kind of going to be an obstruction in your path? Usually, again, I've done a lot of walking in my life. I'm not a runner, but I didn't get my license until I was 22. So anywhere that I wanted to go, I had the shoe leather express. I walked everywhere I needed to go. I was walked opposite road, opposite side of traffic. If the traffic was coming on to me, you walk into the traffic so that you can see what's coming towards you so that you have adequate time to get out of the way. If there are cars stopped on the side of the road, again, I am a petite 5'3" white girl that I'm going to make it my business to remove myself from any potential hazard or harm. So I'm not going to come up on a vehicle that's already stopped in front of me, first off. And I'm definitely not going to approach a vehicle that has armed men inside of it. If you look at the Ahmaud Arbery video, you see that not only does he approach a car that's in front of him with armed suspects inside of it, but he bubbles out and around the vehicle and actually comes out in front of it and attacks the man with the gun. I have only recently gotten a firearm. I, am not an avid shooter. I try to, get myself back up to par. I want to be an avid shooter. I am going to be in pursuit of either, I'm going to conceal carry on my own terms, or I'm going to pursue a concealed carry license. I haven't decided yet. And I have no problem telling you that. But, again, if you know that you don't have a gun, it's not like Aubrey was confined or entrapped or kept in a way that wouldn't lead to other choices. Everybody has choices to make. And unfortunately, he made a bad choice. He attacked somebody with a gun. And at that point, you are now entrenched in a fight or flight type of altercation where you have to make decisions based upon what you know and your own physical abilities. And sometimes people make the wrong choices. I'm not saying that he deserved to die for whatever, transgressions that he had committed prior to. But when you put yourself into that position, it doesn't matter what your skin color is because you have made that choice. Now, would this story have gotten national headlines if it was, all a group of black guys? Would it have gotten the same national headlines if it was all a group of white guys or all a group of, take your pick? It doesn't matter. I don't think that it would have gotten the headlines. And we tied this back to Central Park Karen. Just that viewpoint of that woman was completely utilized in the Ahmaud Arbery case when people were saying, it was a bunch of white people who went out and hunted a black man. And it doesn't matter what happened prior to that. He was shot in cold blood. But that's not necessarily what was shown on the video. And I've seen, and this is overall, I've seen a mass outpouring of people who just take this race narrative and run with it. So never mind that Ahmaud attacked the guy with the gun, and never mind that, what would have been the difference if it was a cop that approached Aubrey or the McMichaels that approached Aubrey. We've seen videos come out of Ahmaud Arbery also having multiple altercations with the police. So when people had stepped out and said, the homeowner and the McMichaels should have just called the police and let the police handle it, I asked, what would have been the difference? What would have been the outcome if he, was confronted by a man with a gun in plain clothes, or if he was confronted by a man with a gun in a uniform? And then, of course, this morning I wake up to the Minneapolis riots and the George Floyd case. I had heard about it yesterday, but I, was entrenched in a discussion on Parler about the Central Park Karen instance, and just trying to get my point across that that's why we get painted as racist, and these are the escalating points that it comes to by saying those things and behaving in that manner, and then we get the ultimate kind of cherry on top with the George Floyd case. So in this case, if you haven't heard, because this one's kind of a news story, it's out there, there's riots, there's lots of things happening, but if you haven't heard, supposedly the suspect in this one, and we're not even sure if that was George or if it was somebody else, if the police made a case of mistaken identity, we don't know yet. Supposedly there was a bad check that was passed. A description of the suspect was given to police. They arrived on the scene. George was in his car. The officers saw him as matching the description. They took him out of the car. He was supposedly or allegedly intoxicated. He also resisted arrest. After subduing the suspect, they put him in a subdued stance, in a prone position on the ground, handcuffed, and proceeded to kneel on his neck until the ambulance came. Now, this is where the story gets a little bit fishy to me, because they're stating that he seemed to be having respiratory issues kind of prior, from what I assumed was prior to being put in that prone position with pressure on his neck, which is why they had gotten the ambulance to respond. Maybe it was really because he was intoxicated and they had every intention of taking him to the hospital to detox him. They can pump the stomach, they can do all different kinds of things, whatever they need to do to get the chemicals out of your system. And, they have a video. I think it's a 5-minute long video. It took me a minute to hunt down the original footage of the video, because so many news stations have chopped, clipped, and pieced together what they want to piece together. But, when you look at the video, again, I'm not defending any of the positions by the police force. I'm not defending how they handled the situation, but I want to give you some food for thought. So when you hear that somebody is intoxicated by a substance and is combative, you really need to be in the loop for drug usage. It affects a lot of us. And me personally, I've seen a lot of people on many different drugs, not only just coming from the area that I used to live in, but also from my own family and my own friends and the lifestyle that I sought out as a young adult. And I've seen the way substances manipulate your mind. There's, hallucinogenics. There are certain drugs that boost people's physical attributes. This guy wasn't a very small man, from what I understand. His nickname was the Gentle Giant. So this man was kind of large. It probably would have taken a few officers to subdue him. And what was even more interesting is if you listen to the backlash, if you will, of the surrounding people in the area. And one thing really caught my attention on these videos was the gentleman. I don't know if he was the one recording or if he was just standing next to one of the people who was recording, but he kept telling the suspect, George, he told him, just get up, just get in the car. You're not going to win. I've seen my brothers die in the back of police cars. This isn't a fight that you're going to win. To me, hearing that from a bystander, it's not a police officer. I don't know who it is or if they ever, came out with their identity, but this person has watched now this suspect fight with officers to get himself into the position that he's in now. Again, I don't know how many times I have to say it. I don't condone the actions of the police officers. I can't, give you a reason why they did it other than what I'm trying to explain to you now. And I don't think that it has anything to do with the color of the man's skin. When you have these instances, officers have to make decisions, and sometimes they make good decisions and sometimes they don't. They make bad decisions. But I tie this back to the Ahmaud Arbery case by saying, again, what difference would it have made if these people were in uniform or they weren't in uniform? Because now the backlash is coming back at the police force. Amy Klobuchar has spoke out about this issue. LeBron James, Cardi B, all different, Justin Bieber, all different kind of people have come out and again, this is racist and this is why black people don't, pay attention to officers of the law, and they're out to just kill us, and they're doing X, Y, and Z. But it really then makes me question even further. Okay, so we cared about what happened before the tape went on in the case of Central Park Karen. Everybody came to her aid and kind of said, well, she was alone and she was in the park, and, all these different excuses as to why she had the fear that she had by blatantly telling this African-American man that she was going to call the police on him and claim that he was attacking her, when even by his own admission, there was no such thing. And I know a couple people have said that, well, he didn't have to coax her dog, and that was, an overstep. It was inappropriate behavior, but it wasn't a threat by any sense of the word. I don't remember him having a gun. I don't remember him holding her at knife point. I don't even remember him threatening her life. And I think she came out and said, she overreacted. And then we go to the Ahmaud Arbery case where it's wait for the police, wait for the police, wait for the police. Well, if we would have waited for the police, then would we have had another George Floyd incident on our hands? And now that we have the incident where the police are involved, they are the ones who have stepped up and have now started policing, if you will. Now they're still racist. They're still racist because they killed the black man. But if he was on drugs, did the drugs play a part into the fact that he couldn't breathe? I saw the tape myself. Again, I don't like the hold that he was in. I don't like that they kept him in the hold after he did stop moving. But for a good 4 minutes on that tape, he was talking. He was having a conversation with a bystander, and he was still what looked like attempting to move or to, I get it. He's being held down. There's a reasonable expectation that you're going to want to readjust your body so that you can breathe, so that you can move, so that you can do these things. I'm not an idiot. I understand that, and I get what you're saying. I do. But it got to that point. It escalated to that point. You made yourself a danger enough to these officers that now, again, you're putting yourself in a fight or flight situation. You're putting the officers in a fight or flight situation because of your bad choices prior to what happened. And again, we don't have all the information. I tried to look up a past arrest record, but people will say that doesn't matter. Okay, I could take or leave that information. Yes, it matters to a point. And then at one point when the man is no longer moving underneath of you, I get it. His past does not matter. but you need to understand what they might have been up against and why they reacted the way that they did. Was it because of his skin color? People are, oh well, this is how black people are treated all the time. This is how black people. It's not. It's absolutely not. And again, how many people have gone out and actually done the research to find out how, different suspects are subdued by the police officers? I've seen a lot of white people get arrested and fight officers. As a matter of fact, my ex was a convicted felon and he fought with police officers. And when I tell you he was lumpy in his mugshot, They beat him pretty badly, but he also attacked them with a screwdriver. So again, actions have consequences, and to say that it has to be a race thing or it has to be based on the color of his skin, I'm sorry, I don't necessarily agree with that. And again, this doesn't absolve the officers of what they did. That doesn't mean that they had the right to sit on the man until he was motionless. But what we're trying to piece together is a cause and effect. So I ask again, was he on drugs? Did the toxicology report come back and have a part in the death? Was it asphyxiation? Did he have broken bones? Another thing I need to ask is, the officers obviously called for an ambulance prior to the video being shot. So was he in respiratory distress prior to that? That makes their actions a little bit more iffy if he was, other than the fact that, again, if he was still resisting arrest, how do you properly subdue that person and take a medical evaluation of the person in the same instance? They're not trained that far. They're trained to subdue until a point, and I get it. They should have picked him up. They should put him in the car. But while they were waiting for the ambulance, why did they call the ambulance in the first place? And again, we go back to, why are all these stories connected? Why does it take 3 instances to prove a racist narrative? And I think that when you look at the cases, you wouldn't think race in almost any of these instances. Personally, I think, to me, looking at it with fresh eyes, and maybe it's because I'm white, I don't know, I see the Central Park Karen being the most racist of either of the other 2 instances. What she said and what she did, her demeanor to such a minor dispute, seems to be the racist mentality that people are looking for. Yet there are more people willing to excuse her actions than there are to excuse either Ahmaud or George's actions, after, like I said, being accused of a crime per se. Ahmaud was caught on tape, multiple instances. Trespassing is a crime. You shouldn't be on other people's private property. George Floyd, whether he was an innocent or whether he was actually the suspect that they came to the scene for, you, again, don't have to resist to the point where now the officer has to take charge of the situation. If you're innocent, again, I have been held at gunpoint by the police. I don't ever remember feeling anything other than, animosity, because I knew I wasn't the suspect that they were looking for. Again, is it because I'm white? I don't know. The thing that gets to me about the race baiting is because we have so many people like Karen out there talking about how scared they are of this person or that person because of this instance and that instance, we just forget to hold people accountable for their own actions. Um, Apparently, and again, if you take the race out of the equation, I'm sure I'm going to get backlash. I know I'm going to get backlash because I'm taking race out of the equation in these other two instances and saying, if you take if you take it out of the equation, would this be national news? Would we be talking about it? Would we be discussing the conversation that we're having right now? So, again, to reiterate, in the Central Park Karen case, everybody wants to know, well, what happened before the cameras came on? What happened before the cameras came on? What prompted her to behave that way? And then it was, oh, well, he lured her dog, and he told her to put her dog on a leash, and that's not his place to say. Okay, I don't care. What you said was a racist comment. That's how cops get painted as racist, because you just said that if you call and say that there's an African American male harassing you, they're supposed to come in with some sort of vengeance. In the Ahmaud Arbery case, take race out of the equation. I don't care if he was black, white, Puerto Rican, Asian, purple, green. I don't care. He was somewhere where he shouldn't have been, whether it be sheer curiosity, whether it be, just going in and casing the place. We don't know. We won't have the opportunity to know. But he was somewhere where he shouldn't have been multiple times. And as that story unfolds, we're getting so much more information that somebody is lying in that instance, whether it be the homeowner, whether it be the false narrative that he was just a jogger, because that's been debunked, whether it be that the McMichaels were KKK members, which they can't, definitively conclude from the information that they have now, down to this George Floyd case where we don't know if he was the suspect, and now nobody cares if he was the suspect of a crime because the man is dead, and now we're focused on painting the police force as racist, and they're only out to get black people, and they're only doing, a service to white people. Not, did he have health conditions? Not, did he maybe have a mental condition? I know that a lot of people are coming out and saying, well, he had a job, and, his family is attesting to his good nature and who he was. But I also saw that he had moved from Texas to Minneapolis for a fresh start. People just don't up and pick up out of nowhere for a fresh start because they were doing so good where they were before. There's a reason behind that. I'm not saying what the reason is. Let me be explicitly clear. I'm not saying he's running from a treacherous past. I didn't come down to Georgia from Pennsylvania because I had a treacherous past. I needed to get away from, certain things that were happening in the government, certain instances that were happening in the family, certain things that were important to me were better for me and my family here in Georgia. That's all I'm saying. So there has to be a reason why he picked up and left Texas and went to Minneapolis, and why these things unfolded in his life the way that they did. Again, I don't believe that it's anybody's job to subdue a suspect to death, okay? A lot of shooting deaths that happen with police officers are done because it's my life or your life. We have to realize these officers are not here to protect the public safety. They're here to apprehend people who break the law. When you make that distinction between what an officer's job is and how some of the officers do their job, I think you're on a better path to understanding, not justifying, not making excuses, not giving them a pass. They were fired. A lot of people are saying, well, that's not enough. What is enough? I'm confused, because if you want to hold people accountable for their actions, that's fine. but now we're turning it into a race war. And this is what we have to stop doing. And this is the point of this video, that it doesn't matter what color his skin was. Let's talk about what actually happened. Let's talk about why it happened. And let's talk about how we can prevent it from happening in the future. And to do that, you have to take the race out of the equation. You can't have these headlines: black man killed by police, black man killed for jogging, white woman accuses black man of harassment. You can't have those type of headlines if that's not what is happening. Again, I encourage you to go look up all these videos. I encourage you to listen to the background, especially in the George Floyd case, because the comments from the bystanders, most of them were kind of positive, hey, get off his neck. Hey, he's not breathing. Hey, this, that, and the third. But there are also offhand comments that it's so deeply ingrained in these people that they automatically turn around and say, well, the cops are here to hunt down black people and they don't care about his life because he's black. That might not have had anything to do with the way that they acted. That might not have had anything. Could it have been? Sure. But we could sit here and play the coulda, woulda, shoulda, maybe game with everything. Could he have used his taser? Could he have used his gun? Could he have used this, that, and the third? And again, in all three instances, coulda, woulda, shoulda, coulda, woulda, shoulda keeps coming up over and over and over again. And it comes down to race. But out of all three instances, the only racism that I saw was Central Park Karen feeding into the narrative that has now been perpetuated by these other two instances. If we don't want to be classified by our race, if we don't want to be put into boxes, we have to stop buying into what they want us to believe, how they want us to act. And you go back to the comments from the George Floyd case, the comments from the Aubrey case, people that are taking the race bait narrative and just running with it based on what they assume rather than what actually happened. And in the one case where I personally saw an instance of racism blatant in front of my face, everybody wants to defend her. Candace Owens come on and defended her. You had, Anthony Brian Logan come on and defended her. And I'm not defending any of the situations. Again, there are many different circumstances that play into how an instance unfolds. And me personally, I don't see how the color of somebody's skin played into any other instance except for the first instance, the Central Park Karen instance, the Amy Cooper instance. She could have said, I'm calling the police to say that you're harassing me. I'm calling, the police, or I'm just going to put my dog on the leash and walk away. How about that? Can we just put our dog on the leash and walk away? We talk about this all the time. It takes a long time for the police to respond to an instance. Many of the times, as we've seen in the Central Park Karen case, they don't want to stick around and wait for the police to get here. By the time the police get there, the suspect is gone. They can't hunt them down. They don't have enough information. The crime isn't severe enough. I don't even think that the cops could have done anything other than issue her a fine and citation. So, again, I don't understand why we inject a racist narrative into, unfortunate events that happen when there's no racist narrative to be had. Even my own my personal page, some people that I know personally, and my professional page, the Georgia Liberty page. People are, if you defend these actions, then unfriend me. And, if you're a racist, then unfriend me, and blah, 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 blah. Look, I'm not defending anybody's actions, but I am also not going to take this as a race narrative. There are real extenuating circumstances that you need to put your emotions aside for and understand what is happening regardless of the skin color, regardless of what you're being told something is, as opposed to what something isn't. And like I said, I know that I'm going to receive backlash for this video. I'm a white girl. I'm not supposed to be talking about these things. I'm not supposed to have an opinion that differentiates from the narrative. And I'm definitely not supposed to be recording videos like this and putting them on YouTube, telling people to ignore the race bait. And anybody that follows me on social media, I've kind of been on this kick for a couple days, kind of anticipating this coming, because the mainstream media narrative goes in cycles. We went from orange man bad, coronavirus is all Trump's fault. We're going to initiate another investigation into his response or non-response to the coronavirus, and we're going to put together another impeachment committee group to attempt to impeach him again, to everything is racist. And again, these things come in threes. So it started with Ahmaud Arbery, it went into Central Park Karen, and now we're at George Floyd, and you see the escalation there. After this dies down, I guarantee we'll be back to coronavirus soars. The numbers soar because we're doing more testing. States are opening up, and the more people that get tested, the more we're going to find out that more people have it. And to me, that's a good thing, because that means that it's a lot less deadly than we thought it was, or what we told you it was, and debunk their narrative even further. And then we're going to go straight from the coronavirus narrative into socialism will save us all. And, we'll probably hear more about the USDA and their ramping up the efforts for the government facilities that will be passing out your pre-approved box of food, and right back into Orange Man bad, because we're probably going to hear something, and I'm speculating here, we're probably going to hear something like Trump wants to disengage, if you will, from the government approved funding for bailing out the farmers and whatnot, and then the cycle will repeat itself again. So I know that I'm not supposed to be talking about this, and I'm sorry if you think I'm a racist now, and I'm sorry if you think that I shouldn't be making these comments or making these videos or have this opinion on the world or these events. And if you disagree with me, I don't care. That's fine. I'm not saying that I don't care about your opinion, because that sounds a little harsh, but I'm saying that if you disagree with me, that's fine. We live in America, and you're entitled to assume and have your own life experiences to draw your feedback on. But based on my life experiences and what I've seen with my own eyes, being, again, arrested myself, spending, not a whole lot of time. I spent 10 days in the county jail on my first offense. So when you tell me that they're only out to get white people, no, or I'm sorry, they're only out to get black people. No, again, 18 years old, first offense, non-violent offense, 10 days in the county jail. The only reason that I ended up only serving the 10 days was because my co-conspirators actually fessed up to the bulk of the crimes, and told the prosecutor that I was just along for the ride. So, short history about me. Yes, I have been in jail, and no, it's not fun. And again, I could go into a big long story about that, but I won't. But again, if we don't step back from this race narrative, it's just going to keep escalating. It's just going to keep escalating. And I think the riots in Minneapolis are the perfect example of what this is, kind of leading to. And I know that our representatives are excited about this narrative. They're creating more discord, and they're creating more fire in the belly, if you will, for the citizens who haven't been paying attention, and it gives us something to distract ourselves from something like the Heroes Act. And I always have to ask myself this question too, when they come in threes like this, what is going on behind the scenes? So today, that's going to be kind of my little personal adventure. I've seen everything that I need to see with all three of these instances. I really need to find out what's happening behind closed doors, what's going on, what type of legislation has been passed, what's going on while they're keeping us all preoccupied with their race baiting narrative. So here's to white girls talking about issues that they shouldn't be talking about, and here's to freedom of speech, and again, my little part of civil disobedience by stating opinions on matters that go against the grain. And I hope to catch you guys on the next one, and that's all I got for you today.